eventful week for me. And
Boy, you're busy, still real busy with everything else too, huh?
Wait, I'm sorry.
What, did you forget to put the mute on?
Yeah, it's not on.
Oh, honey.
I think I'll just let him talk for a while.
He muted himself. He realized.
Well, he was doing pretty good.
That's funny.
Did they mute it?
Yeah, yeah,
I think wanted to talk.
It's just been a lot going on. We had a tree fall down and into the street, and then the city comes by to get it out of the street, and so they put it on your yard, of course, and that means that you don't that I'll need to get somebody to cut it up and take it off, and there's a couple other trees that need to be cut down, and it's just already arranged. He's going to do it Monday or Tuesday. It just kind of flowed kind of easily in that way, and that's just one very minor thing. Uh, oh yes, there's another matter. Uh, the woman was walking down the street in front of our house. I think she had a kid or two with her. I wasn't out, but Mary was out there, and our kitty was in the yard, and noticed that trailing behind this woman, 10 or 15 feet, was a little kitty. I could say our kitty is really a cat. It's grown, but and the little kitty, I don't know, maybe it saw our cat, but it ran into our yard and got under the car, and our cat got under the car. And then Mary walked over there, and this little kitty just followed, no, it didn't follow her, walked onto our porch and was standing at the front door. And Mary said, I felt it was saying, I need to go and come in here. So Mary picked it up and brought it in. Oh, but she asked the lady in the street, what's with the kitty? And the lady said, well, it's just been following us. Well, it come from somewhere up there in the neighborhood. So we brought it in, and I presume there's a lady or a man or a woman somewhere who's looking for a cat, but we don't know where they are, and maybe they'll come by. Maybe they'll leave posters around the neighborhood. I don't know. At any rate,
Maybe the kitty's found a home, huh?
well, it's more like a temporary shelter, I think, because the owner of this kitty could show up at any time asking us if we'd seen a kitty, and we'd have to say, yeah, well, here she is. And what is interesting is that our grown cat, which is twice the size of this little kitty, seems to be really put out and scared of this kitty. I don't understand it. It will not go into the same room. It will hide. It will hide in a corner. And it's this big, and the kitty's that big. It doesn't compute. I don't understand it. But at any rate, I'm hoping they'll. In fact, I put Emmy, that's the name of the kitty, on the board this morning because she seemed to be having such a hard time with this little old tiny animal. Be that as it may, I don't know where that will go. But oh yeah, and it's already the little kid presence of the little kitty has already been seen as helpful to us. So it may have just wandered into our house to deliver a blessing, and it may go a little bit later. I don't know. You never know about things like that. I thought I would talk a little bit about what happens when there's something really gets your goat, as they say. That's a phrase. I don't know where it came from, but it means something really gets under your skin. When we're talking to other people or around other people, lots of times they say things that maybe we don't agree with, but it doesn't affect us. I mean, whatever. But every once in a while, it gets under your skin, and you suddenly feel bad. You have the piece that that was mentioned here on our bulletin is not in your mind anymore. That's how you tell that it's something that's under your skin is you lose your peace. We all experience that. Now, let's suppose that that has happened with you. I know it's happened at one time or another. Well, let's suppose it happens again. Who knows? It might. And I'm going to ask you to imagine that you're kind of feeling that upset, and the other whoever this other person is that has upset you is telling you that they have a problem with you. And so I'll try to kind of mimic what they might say. They're going to come up and they're going to say, I have a real problem with you. You remember what you did last week? You didn't take into account how I felt at all. And I'm not feeling really good about you right now because I'm still remembering that. And you're trying to think back what you did. And you say, oh, yeah, I did that. And you may, okay. And so the person goes, let's say the person is fairly upset. Why didn't you just be loving? Have you ever heard that? Why don't you learn to be kind? It's easy, isn't it? Okay. And if they know you're a Course in Miracles student, they could even say, that's what you're supposed to do. You're a Course in Miracles student. What is one of the first things you need to be doing or thinking to yourself when that happens? I'm just going to let you tell me because we have all been in such situations. Well, does anybody have a thought? You know, you're feeling attacked. In other words, this person is attacking you in a mild way. They're not calling you that, but they're not calling you that. You're not really under attack, but they have brought into question your integrity or your honesty or your personhood or whatever by saying, you did this to me. I just really needed a little help and you just ignored me and walked off the other way. God.
Tamara's got her hand up.
Okay. Tamara, what's the first thing?
Immediately ask for a miracle because orange is not my color.
Orange. I'm not. That's a great idea. I'm all for it. But I don't follow the orange aspect.
Well, because if I don't turn it over immediately and ask for a miracle and a new perception, then, you know, I'm likely to end up in an orange jumpsuit.
Oh, okay. I just needed a little clarification. I appreciate it. They may be carting you off.
Yeah. So I need to either grab the course book and pray or grab some silverware. Not a good idea.
Okay. Anybody else we all go with that one. I know. Ask for a miracle.
A lot of football players here in Tennessee that wear orange.
Yeah.
The big orange they call it.
How about God's son is guiltless?
That's a good one. You can all what Norm is suggesting here is it's really important to affirm your guiltlessness at this point. And now, would it be good to say, well, you're just seeing this the wrong way. I didn't intend to upset you anyhow. How would you vote on that as a response?
Probably not helpful.
Probably not. I agree with you, Stephen. Probably, yes.
The other night at the VFW, fellow was talking to me about it. He'd been into service dog leash handoffs, and he's telling me that because I allow people to pet my dog, she's not a real service dog. Halfway in the conversation, I'm starting to think, you know, what's this all about? Then I realized that it was his narrow view of what a service dog was that wouldn't let him see that like people, service dogs are of many different uses and many different things. And it wasn't my use of my service dog, is his view of the service dog.
Right. I like to remember this, that if speaking to the other person, well, or to myself either for that matter, if you're upset, you have a problem. It's not somebody else. The problem is yours. Why? Because you're upset. You know, and if the other person isn't, they presumably don't have a problem. They may or may not be showing you that they're upset, but if they're actually not upset, then they don't have a problem. So the idea here is that you can get sort of trapped in the idea of thinking, well, oh, this person is doing some good, what do they call it when you're emoting? And I can see it's benefiting. Let's say this is someone you like more or less, or care about, you know, you can say, oh, I see that he or she is emoting and that's beneficial to them. So you don't really say much, you just listen. What do you think about that? Not saying anything, just being quiet and listening and letting them run down until they're through, and then you can process it later. Is that an idea that sounds useful to you, or is there a problem there with that?
It did work.
Now that's what you did. It sounded like you just it didn't bother about responding. You processed the situation. Yeah.
I was at the dollar store and I was trying to, I had to catch the bus and this woman kept asking questions and put stuff back and bring stuff, and I was looking at her like, what are you doing, She took really a long time, and of course she has a car, she didn't have to catch the bus, and I just kept like droning and moaning. She looked at me and she said, you are so rude. And I just looked at her, I was just really quiet because I was rude. And I could have said, well, what the fuck were you doing? Like, taking so long. But I just looked at her because she was right. It's hard to be quiet, but there's nowhere they can go after that. When you're quiet, there's nothing they can do.
You're not giving them anything to latch on to. And somehow being quiet does not quite equate with rude in my mind. So, I mean, I don't understand that, but that's how the other person was reacting, and they have a right to do that. The thing that I want to emphasize most strongly at this point is this: after the situation is over, whether you said something, whether you didn't, you have to assess how you feel. Okay, am I at peace or not? If you are, hey, all is well. But don't try to tell yourself that you're at peace if you're not. That feeling of peace is important. That's our goal, you might say, but you need to be aware of the fact that when you're not at peace, it tells you something. It tells you that you've judged against yourself in all probability. In other words, the other person is sitting there judging you continuously, bam, 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 bam. And you have jumped on the train and said, well, there must have been something wrong with me, or he or she wouldn't be saying all that stuff. And so at some point,
Tamara's got her hand up.
okay, Tamara, go right ahead.
I'm following along what you're saying, Bob, but if I don't affirm the truth in my mind immediately and ask for the Holy Spirit's help, then the ego jumps on that, whatever they're talking about. And I mean, it just starts spinning out of control, and then the doubt sets in and all this other. So I have to affirm the truth to myself, and I have to do that with Holy Spirit. Otherwise the ego just goes rampant.
I think that's pretty much all the experience that we all have. And this discussion is best referred back to a quote from the Course, which is, we've said here many times, but I don't want you to forget it when you're in this situation. It says the best defense is not to attack the other person's position, because you're just giving them something to pull and tug on with you more. That's kind of what you were thinking about when you were not saying anything. Don't attack their position, but to protect the truth. And that's what Tamara is talking about. It means the truth, your truth in you. So, and if you're telling me of how awful I am, instead of arguing with you and saying, no, I'm not awful, that's a negative statement. Say a positive statement. I'm wonderful. You know, you know, it's like saying, if you want to think that, you can, but I don't think. You must affirm that you do not. I do not join you in your thinking of that. I can join you, but the course says, you know, join with the person, join with the dreamer, but not with his or her dream. So this is an important thing to do in most cases. If you and if you're not sure whether you need to speak out, I would encourage you to speak out anyway, just to be to sort of to use this protection. It's like saying, I'm not going to argue with you about your position. You think I'm an awful person. Well, that's your thought. I allow you to have your thoughts and your feelings, whatever they are, but it is not my thought. I'm not going to join you and say I'm an awful person. I'm a child of God. You see, and protect your truth, however you want to do it. Or if someone were to say, well, you're just really unthoughtful about other people, you could say, I try to think of other people as often as I can, you know, what they want as often as I can. A positive statement. It almost doesn't matter what you say. You know, you just say, I'm a child of God, actually. I'm a child of God today, yesterday, and tomorrow. I'm always a child of God. And he is smiling upon me now, as you criticize. Don't say that. See, because that would be an attack on them. And then we'll be reeled into the thing even more. But with it, I would like to agree with Tamara, because that is the way I feel as well. I can't speak for you, but I have to keep my truth in my mind, or I'm going to go downhill and lose my peace. And if I forget to do that, what I would, if it was someone that I had access to, I would go back, and I'm not at peace. I would go back to them and I'll say, I just want to share one thing with you. I'm a child of God, and he's smiling on me now. Like,
Ask them if they're saved.
yeah, yeah, or you say, no, I'm not going to go there. You can restore, your peace can be restored. You're the one that's lost it if you have. So in asking for a miracle is to asking the Holy Spirit to help you regain it. But it is essential, and we all know this, to get back that feeling of peace. It doesn't feel good to feel unpeaceful, you see. So it's just such a wonderful quote. You don't ever attack their position. Don't ever argue with them or try to change their mind. You don't really care what they think anyway. What you care about is how you feel. You know, and so you want to protect that without attacking them. If you attack them, you're not going to get your peace back. You know, it's not that it's right or wrong. It's just that it doesn't make the problem go away. The problem is you're losing sight of your perfection. And so you need to affirm that, and the Holy Spirit will help you do that. It's not easy, not hard to do, really. Well, I'm great today. I hope you'll be great. No, period. A minimum of words is wise, fairly wise thing. I'm great. I'm happy. Yes.
Somebody in my Worthinghill neighborhood has put signs up, beautifully painted wooden signs, beneath a painting of the third eye, and it says, "You're doing great today."
Isn't that wonderful?
And
Wow.
it doesn't matter how you're feeling. When you look up at that, it just lifts your spirits. And I just I love whoever did that.
Really wonderful.
That's great.
They do things like that.
Hi, Michael.
I read recently, inspired kind of parallel to the Course in Miracles, was to view our common source and see ourselves as spirit rather than as egos or as bodies. And to remember that we are essentially spirit rather than physicality,
Right.
and latching on where we both are the same.
So the thrust of this is that you deserve to feel peaceful at all time. That is your natural state. If it goes away, get it back as soon as you can. And this always works, by the way. You know, before the course, I didn't know this. I thought I had to argue down the other position and show them how wrong they were to think that. That's not the ball game. That's like being in a baseball game and holding your football and trying to throw a football or bat the football. It's the wrong approach. It doesn't do you any good. All that is needed, truly, in every such situation, there's not going to be an exception to this, is that you keep in mind that you're a perfect child of God in whatever way you want to phrase it. It doesn't matter. And that God is happy with you. No matter what you do. But you keep that thought in your mind, and that's your truth, then you'll keep your peace. Did I miss somebody, or somebody else have a? Yeah.
When somebody gives an apparent attack, the Course tells us that everything is either an extension of love or a call for love.
Right.
So if I keep in my mind, this is a call for love, my response is love. And seeing them as no different from me.
Yeah.
In assertive training in psychology, we're taught the difference between I statements and you statements. And that's about as basic as you can get. Am I speaking I or you? And we mix those and mingle those. And anytime we sneak in a you instead of an I, we get a counterattack, so to speak.
Right.
A real simple way of keeping track of who's saying what.
That's a good point. Thank you.
And a point I was going to make too is that that his truth is the same as your truth. His peace is your peace, or your peace is his peace, in oneness, which is what the Course is trying to get us to. Through the Holy Spirit, we can see that what we're looking at is a mirror of ourselves because we're one. So the truth of myself is also the truth of that person that I'm trying to deal with.
Right. They've lost sight of their truth, presumably, and you're in danger of losing sight of yours, but you don't have to do that. It is not necessary. So just protect your awareness of your truth, and all is well, because the truth of the matter is that God is happy. That the Course says that, or does it? I don't know. It's true wherever, whatever. I'm sure in one way or another it says that, well, God loves us. The Course teaches that God cannot judge. It says judgment is not an attribute of God. He doesn't know what judgment is. So he doesn't have a mechanism to be unhappy with you. In the first place, he'd have to judge you first as being in defective or bad or something, and he doesn't know how to do that. It's a non-attribute. Just simply doesn't occur. You could think of God sort of like thinking of music. Does music judge you? It just fills the airways. And so if you're open to it, you hear it and you smile. See, well, that's a little bit like God's love. It doesn't conceive of. It cannot conceive of this thing that we call judgment. And so this is just talking about a way to help you not judge yourself. Obviously, if you start attacking the other person, you're just in the fray and dig a deeper hole.
Essentially, you're agreeing with what they can counterattack.
Yeah, you're agreeing that attack is what we're all about.
Well, yeah, I shouldn't be agreeing with you No, I don't see me as that way. Whatever.
Just state your truth. There's my mind has been interested in a certain activity, certain types of activity that we get engaged in on a bigger scale than this, but it is kind of related to it. It seems to me. We've all noticed how vitriolic people can be, particularly in our country, over political things. They really get, and when you step back and think about it, you think, what's going on? Why? It'd be just as easy to smile and say, oh, you have a different idea. Fantastic. Not that I have it, but you have it, whatever. Now, a similar thing is how involved people get about sporting events. It's a very similar, I think it's kind of similar, maybe you don't. I guess the difference is in sporting events, you cheer more than boo. You know, it seems that's what I see. If you see a football game or something, your team has a touchdown, there are cheers. When your team doesn't make the first down and doesn't get the touchdown, I don't really hear boos coming from the crowd very often. I mean, that's not typical. In politics, you get both, but maybe no, you get boos primarily, don't you? I don't know, but I think the underlying thing is similar, and I want to talk about the underlying thing and see if you think it's credible. Like what's fueling all this? And there's a quote in the course that it's a little long, so I'm just going to do part of it. It's in chapter 13. And so listen to this for a minute and see if we can relate this to what we're talking about. The darkest of your hidden cornerstones holds your belief in guilt from your awareness. This is in your mind, deep in your mind, underneath a cornerstone, you've put this guilt. Guilt is the belief that you're not good enough in some way or another. Either in God's eye, well, I guess it could be either at least in your eyes, and perhaps you believe it's true in God's eyes as well. For in that dark and secret place, you believe you have betrayed God's Son by condemning him to death. Now, what in the blah, blah, blah does that mean? Okay, when the course says God's Son, sometimes it means just you, but sometimes it means all of us, because we are all sons of God, but we have been created, in my understanding, to link together as two hands holding each other to form a greater entity called the Son of God, which would be comprised of all 8 billion of us, and throw the other planetary people in there as well, however many they are. Maybe there's an infinite, and functioning as one. See, I'm an individual son of God, but when I'm linked in a group, I'm a oneness with the group. As long as we're linked together. And so this is saying we've destroyed that oneness. Well, that's easy enough to see. Just look out in the world. Do you see oneness someplace? How about all 8 billion? Well, of course not. How about just the people in your neighborhood? Now that's a step in that direction. Painting that inner eye up there. It's a step in that direction. But what this is saying is that before we came here, we knew we were all one. All 8, let's just say 8 billion for planet Earth. and it's like, when you take a step, your whole body is into it. Half of my body's not trying to go that way while I'm stepping this way. That doesn't work. Your whole body has to cooperate with the fact that you're stepping or walking, doing whatever you're doing. Well, so we don't look out on the world and see the Son of God. We see a bunch of people either cheering or booing. Okay. And listen to this, you do not even suspect that this murderous idea, killing God's son, lies hidden there deep in your mind. For the ego's destructive urge is so intense that nothing short of the crucifixion of God's son can ultimately satisfy it. And it does not know what the Son of God is because it's blind. Yet let it perceive guiltlessness anywhere, and it will try to destroy it. It's saying that there's a darkness, hidden darkness in your mind that you're not in contact with. So you'll only detect it indirectly. You see, he says, let's just admit in the calm light of truth that you believe you have crucified God's son. Why? Because you're seeing evidence for it everywhere you look. And this presumes that we have a memory. We don't, not aware of it, I suppose, but we have in our minds, we have the understanding that God's son is supposed to be linked together as one rather than fighting with each other. See, it's saying that this is a very basic memory you have. And so you believe that you've destroyed that. And the world reinforces that again and again. So if what probably happens when we see a group, connect that with a representation of the Son of God in your mind. Aha, a group of people. If they're on my team, then we can all cheer together for our team. And I get a little relief, maybe, from that belief that I've destroyed God. So well, I know he's not here, but at least I've got a little group. There are 8,000 of us here. Maybe there's 50,000 in the whole set, whatever. And we're all cheering together. See, that's why we want to do that. And we put so much energy into it. Likewise, in politics, we can say, well, I have been smart enough to figure out which side is right in this. And so I'm identifying with my group. And the other is now, and so I've got a representation of the Son of God here. They're all Republicans, or they're all Democrats, or they're communists if there were any communists anymore. I think they're all gone, pretty much. China's still communist. But at any rate, I think I've identified the right group, the godly group, you know, and I'm now going to project that intense feeling of wanting to crucify onto this other group. See, that's what the Course teaches we do anyway. If we feel bad about ourselves, we want to project it on somebody else, and we get convinced that we're getting rid of it in that way, but we're not. That's why that little statement that we were talking about earlier is not to attack the other person's position, just affirm your truth. You're fine doing that. That's all that's necessary. But people get obvious. It is probably obvious that in politics something emotional is going on here. This is not rationality. Hey, forget that. You know, in fact, it's the lack of rationality. Something emotionally has been triggered. You know, just like if you're in a situation where somebody is judging you, and like we were talking about earlier, you have triggered something in them in all probability. It's not about you. It's about their trigger point. See, you remind me of Aunt Bessie, and I hate Aunt Bessie, and so they go off and off, whatever. Well, this is probably happening in politics too. that desire to crucify God's son, again, the ego saying, yes, I found who I think I found him. And if he's pretending he's guiltless, I really don't like him. And I'm trying to project that anger or that hate on him. And the more people do it, the more it gets amplified. And the bigger it gets, and kind of the results get worse, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. One reason that this comes to mind simply because we had a football game yesterday, and I get to observe how people want to cheer. And I have a friend that comes over to watch a football game, and I always am struck by this, that when UT does something good, there's somebody wanting to say something.
Brian,
You joined the group.
Oh.
Brian just
Oh,
joined the group.
Oh, okay. Oh, fine. I'm not
Okay.
savvy when it, what? I just hear the ding. I know something's happening back there. But when something good happens about UT's football game, you know, maybe they recover a fumble or something. There's this huge, well, it's not, maybe I should, fairly loud, emotional, yeah, you know, or something equivalent. And I'm sitting over there like, well, whatever, because I don't care one way or the other. And I'm thinking, where does his caring about that come from? It makes no sense. Who wins a game cannot be an issue of any importance in the universe. Heaven is not watching with bated breath. Oh, did they win? Or hey, they don't give a flip, even if they could see it. It's irrelevant. But in essence, you know, in the truth of the matter, but our energy makes it relevant to us. And so we want to be able to cheer. That makes us think, well, maybe I didn't crucify all of God's son, because at least there's, if it was a football game, it might be 20,000 people, for example. Last year, it could have been 100,000, you know, whatever. Maybe I didn't crucify it totally because, look, I'm hearing this script and we're all cheering. I'm just saying, what's going on? Something is going on. There's a base for that. It doesn't come out of what makes sense and what doesn't. It doesn't make any sense at all. Why would you care? You know, well, it makes sense emotionally. It doesn't make sense logically, but it does have, there's something emotional, some emotional truth there. And what this is saying is that you have hidden in your mind, and so does everyone else, the belief that you have destroyed God's son. You so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, you've destroyed God's son. You should feel bad about yourself, and even better than that, you've destroyed God's son. It sounds bad to destroy God's son. And it says you believe that. You say, well, I don't intellectually believe that. We're not talking about rationality or just right now. Of course you don't rationally believe that. It's saying that that you're not even aware of it. It says it's hidden. But what will happen is it will come out in these ways that you will notice. And the mechanism that is working here is the mechanism of guilt. And guilt simply says you're not good enough. That is a false belief, but it's got a basis in your mind, you see. So whenever, of course, you recognize that, you would be encouraged to release it, you know, in whatever way you could. And when someone comes at you and says you're not good enough in their discussions, they don't say it that way. Well, they might say you didn't love me. They might say you didn't pay the rent for me like you were supposed to. They'll have some kind of accusation, which is basically you're not good enough. And the course says, yes, actually, you're not just good enough. You're exactly like you're supposed to be, but you're not a body and you're not your personality. It is your spirit, your soul that is perfect. So no one in reading the courses are going to be trying to say that they have a perfect personality. They have a perfect body. That's not what they are. You have those things. And also, it says you have a mind as well. And by the way, the course says your mind is sick. It just doesn't mince words about it. Your mind is sick, but you are not. You're not a mind. You have a mind, like you have a car, except the mind will last forever. The car won't. But your perfection is due to the fact that you're not a body. A body can't be perfect, and a personality can't be perfect. It's just there's always. I don't know what that word means. How would you have to set up a standard. Your body's perfect, only has this height and this dimension, and never gets old and never dies. And there's no such thing as a perfect body. I don't even know why. But you are perfect, and your perfection cannot be taken from you. Did you want to say something?
Well, yeah, but I don't want to lead you into keep you up there too long. How come there's all this son of God, your son, it's never daughter?
That's just because of our patriarchal society.
So they're not as important.
If
Ladies
it-
aren't
if-
as important.
If we lived in
I
a
ain't gonna get- I'm gonna
matriarchal
get
society,
slapped for that.
Yeah.
it would, if we lived in a matriarchal society,
Yeah,
it would be daughter.
yeah.
It's the language of your of your society, and we have a patriarchal society. And the course doesn't mean that word in a gender sense. The Son of God is not a male creature of some sort. It doesn't have a body. If you don't have a body, you know, I get the idea of male and female probably doesn't arise, but it's not, it doesn't have a duality like that. Now some spiritual teachings may say that, well, male and female, that thought, I mean, it goes beyond the body. That that kind of mentality is, goes beyond our limited existence here, and would probably term it yin and yang or something like that. And that may be true, I don't know. But I do not think that that is an eternal characteristic. That's just my opinion. Again, some other views may do that.
It can't be. Course says we're the same, so same can't be different.
Right. Yeah, that's my belief. But I kind of think Taoism may not have that view. I'm not absolutely certain about that. They really emphasize yin and yang a lot, I think. The Tao. So I was just trying to make it
Well,
more.
in this world, yes, we learn by contrast, and that's part of the contrast.
Right. I just, I guess what I was saying was, as far as I can tell, because I don't know enough about it to rule it out, there might be some religion that believe different from that.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I was trying to say. No, the course does not say that at all. It's oneness, it's not two-ness.
Yeah. Well, the Genesis proclaims that God created male and female.
That's right.
He created them.
That's right.
So
That's the basis for that.
That's, yeah.
It is quite conceivable, of course, that there are beings on other planets that are androgynous. Thank you. We just don't know about it. Because the course is addressed to us here on Earth, but the idea is probably, I would presume, would apply throughout the galaxy, no matter what planet you're on. So anyway, this is just an insight to keep in mind when you get amazed at the depth of anger in politics or the depth of cheering in sports. There's something going on there. And at least in sports, it tends to be more positive than politics. I'm not quite sure. I don't know why. Well, maybe in some sports, it's not. Sometimes in soccer games, they have battles on the field later. So sports is not immune, but in most of our sporting events, it seems to be we latch on to the positive and leave the negative behind. In politics, it seems like you latch on to the negative and leave the positive behind. But I think it's fired by this similar thing. And if this, if we didn't believe, this is what this says to me. If everybody out there did not believe that they have crucified God's Son, politicians would get along great. And we wouldn't really feel any particular need to cheer or boo anybody, because there wouldn't be a problem within us that needs to be solved and that we think is solved or helped by all this booing or cheering. Any final comment before we leave this aside?